You just said yes to something you absolutely didn't want to do, and you smiled while you did it. Here's the truth: that wasn't kindness, that was self abandonment. And if you're exhausted from being everyone's go to person while your own life falls apart, this video is going to wake something up in you. I'm Leah Brown, and over the last 2 weeks, we've talked about why burnout isn't a rest problem, it's an identity crisis, and how productivity culture trained you to disappear. This week, we're going after one of the sneakiest causes of burnout: people pleasing. And before you say, but I'm just being nice, no, you're not. You're trading your peace for approval. You're sacrificing your truth for temporary comfort. And that trade, it's bankrupting you. So if you're someone who can't say no without feeling guilty, who over explains every boundary, who feels resentful, even when you're being helpful, let's start with what people pleasing actually costs you. It costs you your energy, because saying yes when you mean no requires you to override your internal truth. That override, it's exhausting. It costs you your time because you're living on everyone else's agenda while your own priorities collect dust. But here's what it really costs you: it costs you yourself. Every time you say yes when your soul is screaming no, you're teaching yourself that other people's needs matter more than your own. You're reinforcing the belief that your worth depends on your usefulness. And after years of this, you wake up one day and realize you don't even know who you are anymore. You've become a supporting character in your own life. I see this all the time in my work. High achieving professionals who've built impressive careers, raised wonderful families, earned everyone's respect, and they're completely empty inside. Why? Because they've spent decades performing for an audience that never asked them to perform in the first place. Now, here's what you need to understand. People pleasing isn't actually about being kind. It's about avoiding discomfort. It's the fear that if you say no, people will think you're selfish. It's the fear that if you set a boundary, people will be upset with you. It's the fear that if you're not endlessly available, people will stop needing you, and then what would you be? So you say yes, you overfunction, you become indispensable. But here's the devastating truth: being needed is not the same as being loved. Let me say that again. Being needed is not the same as being loved. When you make yourself indispensable, you don't create connection, you create dependency. And dependency is not intimacy, it's imprisonment. The irony is that people pleasers are often surrounded by relationships, but profoundly lonely, because nobody actually knows them. They know the version that says yes, that helps, that never complains. But the real you, the one with needs, limits, preferences, and a voice, that person has been silenced for so long you've forgotten they exist. So let's talk about what I call the fear-based yes. This is the yes that comes from fear instead of freedom. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of disappointing someone, fear that if you're not constantly giving, you have no value. The fear-based yes sounds like this: sure, I can stay late, even though I haven't seen my family all week. Of course I'll take that on, even though my plate is already overflowing. No problem, I'll handle it, even though it's not my responsibility. And here's what makes this so insidious. Society rewards this behavior. It calls you selfless. It calls you dependable. It gives you gold stars for your martyrdom. But your body doesn't lie. Your body knows the difference between a generous yes and a fear-based yes. The generous yes energizes you. It flows from abundance. The fear-based yes depletes you. It flows from scarcity. And when you're operating from scarcity, when every yes is an attempt to prove your worth, you're not giving from your heart. You're giving from your wound. Now, here's where this gets spiritual, because I believe boundaries are not selfish. They're sacred. When God created you, He didn't create a bottomless well. He created a person with limits, with needs, with a finite capacity. And when you ignore those limits in order to please people, you're not being virtuous. You're rejecting the design. Your no is not a rejection of others. It's a protection of the truth God placed inside you. Think about Jesus. He had perfect love for people, and yet he regularly withdrew from the crowds. He said no to demands on his time. He protected his capacity to hear the Father's voice. Why? Because healthy boundaries aren't a lack of love. They're the protection of love. When you constantly override your limits, you become resentful. And resentful people don't love well. They keep score. They are people please and then martyr themselves. But when you honor your limits, you create space for authentic generosity. You give from fullness, not depletion. Your no is a complete sentence. It doesn't require an explanation, an apology, or a 3-paragraph justification. No is a sacred word. It protects your yes. So what does recovery from people-pleasing actually look like? It starts with this. You have to become willing to disappoint people, not because you're unkind, but because you're finally being truthful. It means saying, I can't take that on right now, even when someone's disappointed. It means canceling plans when you're depleted, even when it's inconvenient for others. It means letting people experience the natural consequences of their own choices instead of constantly rescuing them. And yes, some people will be upset. Some people benefited from your self-abandonment, and they won't like the new boundaries. That's okay. Let them be upset, because on the other side of that discomfort is freedom. On the other side is a version of you who isn't performing for approval, who isn't exhausted from overfunctioning, who isn't resentful from silent scorekeeping. On the other side is a version of you who finally knows the difference between kindness and compliance. And that version, that's who you were always meant to be. So here's your challenge this week. Notice one fear-based yes, just one. Notice the moment when you want to say no, but you override yourself out of fear. Don't try to fix it yet. Don't force yourself to say no. Just notice. Because awareness is the first step. You can't change what you can't see. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. Each week, we tackle topics that help you notice and overcome the things that keep you stuck and burned out, so you can finally step into the purpose and life you were meant for. Remember, your worth is not determined by your usefulness. You were not created to be endlessly available. You were created to be fully alive. And the world doesn't need another people pleaser. It needs the real you, the one who knows their limits, who speaks their truth, who loves from fullness instead of depletion. Stop performing. Start showing up. I'm Leah Brown, and I'll see you in the next video.